I have to say there is a real eco-activist in my family. So I feel like over the last few years, I've had my sort of socks pulled up when it comes to green credentials. But what is the easiest way, the sort of low headache way to make sure Christmas doesn't cost too much environmentally?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. And we all need to be looking at more sustainable choices for Christmas. We know that nearly 90% of people are really conscious that climate change is happening and want to make different choices at home so that they can have a more sustainable Christmas. You touched on the season of giving, and let's face it, when I think of Christmas, and I'm sure when lots of us think of Christmas, presents is a really important part of what we think about. In the UK, we use enough wrapping paper every year to wrap the planet 9 times entirely.
God,
and
shocking.
It's an extraordinary. And we are, we're throwing away and not recycling nearly half of that. So that, for me, is one of the main areas where we can all make a big difference. Using it a bit more wisely, so use less, good for the pocket, good for the planet, and also to check when we're buying it that it is actually recyclable. That's got to be a really important thing to do, and then make sure we separate it after all of that fun present opening and make sure it goes in the right bin.
Is there any wrapping paper in particular we should be avoiding?
Oh, yes. And there's a really easy tip, which hopefully you may already know from the eco-warrior in your family. However, if you do get a big pile, hopefully a huge pile of wrapping paper after all the presents you've got, pick up your piece of paper, give it a scrunch, and if it stays scrunched like this, then it can be recycled. Simple as that. If it pops back open, it means it's foil or got a kind of plastic lining on it, which means it can't go in your recycling bin. But scrunchy like this means it can be recycled.
But if you scrumple it up, you can't reuse it to wrap something else.
Well, if you've scrumpled it and it's popped back open, then you can reuse it, of course. So you can recycle the ones you've scrumpled to test out. Use a little bit, not all of it. And then the ones that have popped back open, you could reuse for something else, or use even as... my mum always used to use things for drawer linings at the bottom of drawers. So
that's a nice idea. So we sort of tackle presents, but what about the dinner table? Because we know food excess is going to be sort of, well, in excess on Christmas Day.
Absolutely. And we know that food waste can increase by nearly 80% around Christmas, which is a huge thing. The main way to avoid that is, of course, just to buy a little less and cook what you actually need to cook for the people that you're celebrating with. It's very tempting to have huge spreads, but choosing a little less is good for your pocket, good for the planet. And then use up those leftovers really wisely. You can freeze cheese, for example. So if there's loads of that cheese board left over, you can keep some for later. And then anything that is finally scraps, if you have food waste recycling in your area, make sure that goes into your food waste recycling bin to divert that away from where it would be unnecessarily go to landfill.
And can you cook sustainably?
I can, absolutely, and everyone can. So if you make choices like using your hobs in your oven wisely, for example, cook a couple of things at the same time in your oven, that's sustainable and really relevant at the moment with our energy prices as they are. You can also make sure that you are, where possible, choosing any ingredients that are more locally sourced, for example, or seasonal. We're not here to tell people how to choose or what they should choose, but by making little differences, you can make a really big impact. And it's those little choices that people can make that are within their gift that can make a sustainable Christmas.
And so probably most people have sort of already got an idea of what's on the table, or they've already done the supermarket shop and they know it's coming. But if we could choose a greener, more alternative main course, what should it be?
Well, I would always go for a lovely bit of poultry myself. So where are we looking at chickens? Perhaps think about a chicken instead of a whole huge turkey. If there's, you're feeding 4 of you, maybe you don't want to eat turkey for the next 2 weeks afterwards. Maybe go for a chicken instead. That could be a great idea. And I think there'll probably be a lot of Veolia Christmases that have chickens on the table instead of turkeys, keeping in line with a bit of Christmas. Yeah.